welcome all our friends, our neighbors, our brothers and sisters, all citizens of the world to another edition of Live from the Heartland. This is Heartland at Home number 55 for the week of June 5th. And today we are really glad to welcome our overworked, always on the case, State Representative Kelly Cassidy and Pauly Jackson of Edify. We're going to be talking state politics and social justice. So let's get ready. On your mark, get set, go. Katie, any good things happening in your life this week?
I always feel like I should jump up and run when you say that. Only good. I'm going to stay sitting here. Yes, this week, let's see. I got my curtains up to keep the heat out. And I ironed and washed curtains. I did some homemaking things, and I planted more vegetables, including corn. Who knows? I'll keep you posted on that. What did you do this week that you liked?
Well, following up on your planting of the corn, I took cuttings that I originally got many years ago of a Rex begonia from the Rolfer Allen Davidson. And Heartland customers from the old days will remember a plethora of those plants. I have them all over my house, and I've made some cuttings, and I actually planted a bunch of them this week so I can give some away as gifts, including to you, Katie. And the other good thing that happened in my life is I've remained consistent on 2 days a week in the pool, 2 days a week lifting weights, and 2 days a week rowing. I'm feeling good, but a little tired and a little sore.
You're very good, Michael. You're an example to us all.
Well, when you get older, you know, you're running out of time. You got to do what you can.
No, really? Tell me about it. Moving to global elections, just quickly, Netanyahu is possibly out. Fingers crossed. We'll keep track of that interesting system that Israelis use to get him out. You had some commentary.
Well, I was just pointing out it's a coalition of I think 8 different parties that have come together to bounce him. It includes the far right with a fellow named Lapid. It includes a centrist named Bennett. It includes the Green Party, some progressive parties, as well as, for the first time, an Arab Muslim party. And they're all going to stick pretty close to internal issues and not deal with the Palestine question, supposedly. But we'll see how long this holds together and if it really comes off. It would be good.
Love to see that guy leave the world stage. Also, we've got an election that's happening in Peru, which is also interesting for building support. There's a leftist teacher who's taking on the dictator's daughter. And the dictator was the Fujimori, who ruled in the 90s, left in disgrace. His daughter Keiko is running against Pedro Castillo, a former teachers union leader. So that runoff is tomorrow in Peru.
It is.
So
we'll fill you in next week if you haven't read it already.
Also, beginning today and for the next 3 days up in Minnesota is a demonstration of resistance against Line 3, another Enbridge pipeline, oil line that is going through the say it, Michael.
Anishinaabe, I think.
Anishinaabe, Treaty Land, and the Mississippi headwaters. And folks up there plan to stand strong in resistance to it. Similarly, this week, sorry, too much information here, Katie. President Biden put onward drilling on pause. However, I did hear from on BEZ this morning, according to the environmental writer for New York Times, that you know, this is one of the things that the Republicans did right, I guess, right, in quotes. They passed a law in 2017 that requires the president to hold 2 lease sales on the refuge before the end of 2024. The refuge has been warred over for, decades in shall we drill? No, you should not, et cetera, et cetera. And somehow that guy held the first lease sales, and Biden will probably have to be holding the second. He's locked into it. These are the kind of things that got done by the previous administration we should learn from and either block them from happening or do our own version.
On politics in the U.S., there's a lot of talk about the filibuster and whether the Democrats can get rid of it so that they can do a simple majority vote, which they would have. However, there's a couple of senators, Joe Manchin out of West Virginia and Kirsten Sinema from Arizona. They have been defending the filibuster. I came across a letter that came from Invisible, March for Our Lives, Our Revolution, the Sierra Club, and others that said, in the face of Republicans' inability and unwillingness to defend our democracy, it is clearer than ever that the filibuster needs to be eliminated. And while they addressed it to Chuck Schumer, it really was intended for Manchin and Sinema. So we will see. It's going on.
Yep, and that group that you mentioned, it's actually indivisible.
What did I call it? Invisible?
Invisible.
Well, they probably are invisible, but I'm going to check them out. Indivisible.
Yeah, they're very visible.
My apologies, and
That's all right.
I stand corrected.
The other thing that happened this week that everybody knows about, but it was really moving to me to be finding myself to finished planting for the day and wanting to watch Jeopardy at 3:30, turning on the TV, and there was the president in Tulsa acknowledging a wrong had been committed 100 years ago and that it was not the only one, and that we need to acknowledge and take responsibility for them. It was a moment in time. This has not happened before. I know it's not enough, but it was stunning. And I also liked that the regular mainstream media actually interrupted programming to show it. That's significant.
On the labor front, regular listeners or watchers of this show know that we're supporters of the labor movement, and we do look forward to labor marching forward. And we did cover the Amazon strike in Bessemer, Alabama, and looking again at Alabama, we've learned that striking coal miners, part of the United Mine Workers of America, are fighting for better wages and benefits and have filed unfair labor practices against Warrior Met Coal. And the workers gave up a lot 6 years ago when the company filed for bankruptcy. And now they're asking to be paid fair wages, to be actually paid for what their labor is worth. Stay tuned. We'll keep you posted on this and other moves in the labor movement.
And just to restate the importance of the For the People Act, which is moving through the Congress in DC right now, and part of the reason the filibuster really needs to be gone. Currently, just know that Republicans who supported the big lie are running for Secretary of State in Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, and Michigan in 2022. Secretaries of State are the chief elections officers in their states. These are people who have no business on their hands of that machinery. We'll keep you posted. What else? We've got the win this week in New Mexico by Melanie Stansbury. She won handily in the Congressional District 1 that was replacing Interior Secretary Holland, who's hard at work for the administration now. How about any COVID news, Michael?
Well, nationwide, we're on a path to vaccinating 70%, hopefully by the 4th of July. That would be great news. And evidently, one can win all kind of valuable stuff if they get vaccinated. This comes after we were already vaccinated twice. Incentive examples include $1 million, a college tuition, all kinds of rewards, including free beer.
Yeah, it's very funny. Our governor even talked about having a vaccinated person's lottery, so that those of us who are already vaccinated, we could be in a lottery. I mean, NASCAR has a sweepstakes, including 2022 Daytona 500 tickets. Okay. Spotify has a sweepstake to win tickets to independent music venues. Target will give you $5 off your purchase after getting vaccinated in a CVS based in a Target store. Look at those. And United Airlines, Your Shot to Fly sweepstakes for Mileage Plus members. Oh, I didn't see that part. win a year of free flights or a round trip for 2 in any class of service.
Well,
Okay,
good luck to all you who will go out and get vaccinated now, late.
Okay, for everybody who waited, here's your big incentive. Go for it. The bridge to reopening is vaccination. By the way, as we are recording, Lori Lightfoot announced that the city is going to open up on the same day that the state, whatever that means, June 11th. Woo. Okay, so following our interview with Les Begay, we understood there was not a great deal of support by some commissioners in the Cook County Board for designating an Indigenous Peoples Day. We will keep you up to date, but write your commissioner, sorry. I'm going to write Larry Sufferton. I'm also going to write Bridget Gaynor, but I might write a few others.
You're good at writing to people, Kate. That's good. Keep it up.
You think so?
Yeah.
So you're listening to Live from the Heartland, also known as Heartland at Home under the pandemic situation. And we are live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., 88.7 FM, WLUW. Stay right there and we'll be back with our first guest.
Applying pressure, started my grind with crime festers, and now I'm showing like they in they second trimesters. That's why we're in the store, shot it to online. I pay no mind to they benign gestures. Looking please, I got my mind on much bigger things to say the least. My latest speeches sound like they was released by David East. Verses hit hard, never pitched hard or played the streets. These against whips hard, behind closed doors, can't pay the lease. Ain't nothing wrong with living check to check, cause most have to. Instead of capping, why don't you talk about being a broke rapper? That's a perspective I respect because it's real. What it's like to be nice as but gotta stress to pay the bills. That was me in 08, seeing no cake, not even on dates. I celebrated my birth, just did the mental math and calculated my worth. Shit crazy, didn't know I got more M's than a real Slim Shady video. Big boss, let's Rick Ross, smell like a wavy hitty-yo. Kojima, they tote steamers round the way we tippy-toe. Round crack vibes and cold-blooded killers, no reptiles, just projectiles. For niggas salty, you rockin' the fresher textiles. I seen best pals grow up and switch, sometimes over a couple dollars, more often over a bitch. I could cap and say that I never scratched my jealousy's itch, but thank God I conquered that, cause if not, I'd never be rich. Envy keep your pockets empty, so just focus on you. If you broke and clowning a millionaire, the joke is on you. Money ain't everything, I never say that, but against those stones, knowing they sell their soul to get wherever they at. Just know these verses is some shit they gon' forever play back. Hell yeah. Oh, you know what it is, nigga. Don't even, niggas try to act like they're bitch.
And we are back, and we are so happy to welcome for the first time on Heartland at Home or Live from the Heartland, Mr. Myron Pauly Jackson of Edify.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it, Katie and Michael, for you guys bringing me on the show.
Well, we appreciate hearing about you from our neighbors and friends in Evanston, as well as our co-producer, Lynn Orman Weiss. Tragedy is what began what we're all going to be talking about here. Will you share the tragedy in your life that initiated the creation of Edify?
Yeah, I can. First and foremost, it's been a long road of events that has kind of created Edify and the contents of it. Leading up in 2020, I believe April of last year, when George Floyd was murdered in the street in Minneapolis, myself was particularly involved in a protest, as well as my son, who is 3 years old now. He was 2 at the time, and he was involved in a protest with my mom that especially took a toll on me personally, seeing him at 2 years old, fighting and pleading and, begging for his life, saying my life matters and I matter at 2 years old. Now, we both know with our experience that, at 2 years old, you don't really know much. You can't really speak much, but, there's a couple of words that he did learn. And through that rally, it was my life matters and I matter. And, he held up a sign, and for me to sit up there and look at him do that. And, I was, on one side of me was very proud of him. On the other side, it was very, distraught, hurt, confused, just a wide range of feelings during that time. So I returned back to my workplace. This was, in the middle of a pandemic, really actually at the beginning stages of the pandemic and, shutdowns, and we were just transitioning on coming back to work. I was in the daycare industry, working with preschool children. And yeah, I returned back to work, just very confused, a lot of thoughts going through my mind, a lot of people reaching out while I'm at work for that first day back from the pandemic. I'm sure you guys remember that. And, in different areas, it was different times, but yeah, we especially, I was getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of reach outs from a lot of friends, allies, and, not so much reception from my workplace, not even the mention of a, hey, are you okay? Hey, is everything all right? And that was particularly, bothering. And I've seen that happen in other workplaces, and it didn't affect me as much seeing it happen to other people until it happens to you. And that's been the first catalyst of, what affected me. And I ended up 2 days later leaving that position, leaving that company because I felt devalued as a person. And more importantly, my son's, time was being taken away from him, from me working at that place that I felt didn't value myself. So yeah, I moved on for a couple of months. I did some odd jobs. I also, searched within myself to start my own community engagement with children of incarcerated parents, of which I was myself. My father was released last year in 2020 as well, in February. So right before that, I was going through something on him being released after an 8-year sentence. And immediately following after that in August, so just a couple months later, my brother Jacob Blake was shot in Kenosha, Wisconsin, by police in the back during his son's, my nephew's birthday party. So that was especially another catalyst of us starting Edify, and ultimately, turning tragedy into I don't want to say triumph, but into progression, into development of our people as a whole.
So we were all stunned with all the events of last summer, and then gladdened by the reaction of the Milwaukee Bucks. And that was in a reaction to your brother's shooting. Am I right?
Yes, it was. It was.
So talk about that and how you heard that they were doing what they were doing for all the world to see, because then I think you put 2 and 2 together. So go ahead, tell us.
Katie, you're spot on. I actually was in the midst of all the madness out in Kenosha for a month. Just to clarify, Jacob was the only one, him and his family, to live out in Kenosha. So all the rest of us in our family were still in Evanston and still in Chicago area. And, we were all down in Kenosha when, as soon as everything happened, and we stayed down there for a month. But, a day or two later, the Milwaukee Bucks stood in solidarity and did a boycott, a lockout from the NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks is an NBA team that, instead of going to their game, which was in the bubble during the middle of the pandemic in Orlando, they stayed out, didn't come out to the floor, and instead made a public statement, called the Attorney General, and, wanted to demand justice for my brother. And, that was a feeling coming from me. Jacob's not particularly an NBA fan, more football guy than anything, and an artist. But for me, that was quite touching because I followed sports my whole life. And they actually reached out to us right after that. But for them to halt a multi-billion-dollar industry, halt millions and millions of dollars, and show collective organizing between sports was really important. And it was probably the most historic and biggest boycott as far as dollar amount in the history of sports. And they started off something a lot bigger than many people even realize to this day. And that solidarity was big. And the Bucks actually reached out. We had a Zoom meeting with them where they expressed their deepest condolences, and actually lended out a lot of support for our family.
Pauly, what are you trying to do with Edify? What is your goal? What are your hopes, your aspirations with this new organization?
The big thing for Edify is we plug power to purpose. So we looked, I like you said, Lynn, Katie, I took that momentum that they had leading from the shooting of my brother. And I said, hey, these players want to feel empowered, right? These players are going through this right with us. They come from communities that, have had these situations go on. They've had this experience. Some of them has had it firsthand, but they're forced to, play basketball, not forced, this is their profession, but they're playing basketball. A lot of the time they're pressured to stay out of these situations. But I saw that a lot of them were empowered to do that at that time. So I saw that power that they have from that momentum. And I said, hey, let's plug it to real tangible purpose and change within our communities. And then I also see these grassroots organizers that are dedicating their lives, Michael, dedicating their lives day in and day out to help revitalize our communities of disparity. So my goal is to continue to empower the athletes and platformed individuals and take their word, their power, their action, their influence, and plug that into the communities that need it. Plug that into their communities, plug that into our communities, and really empower grassroots organizations, municipal politics, which is most important, right? Like we were in the middle of a primary at the time when this was all happening. And, we all know that most importantly, municipal politics, those affect your everyday life much more than a primary election ever would. So we saw that.
To hear you say that. So glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, I mean, the sad fact is that most of us don't know who our city council member is, don't know who our alderman is, and these are the people that we need to be reaching out to really affect our everydays and directly around us, and then we'll branch out into what what we can.
So can I ask you? You have a partner in this, or maybe I've got it wrong. Is Daniel Poneman still involved?
Yeah, of course. Daniel's been a longtime friend of mine. One of my best friends since I can remember kindergarten, and he actually is a NBA agent and co-founder of Beyond Athlete Management.
Right.
And he was just reaching out as support during the time, and also a close friend with my brother Jacob. And yeah, he was just reaching out as a friend and family during the time of need when we needed him. So yeah, we all kind of put this together. Just him being that outside perspective during this time of need. I had to deal with taking care of my family at the time, making sure everybody was fed, making sure the kids were okay, doing remote learning, getting them their tablets, making sure, and this is with the help of a community and family, but there was so much going on during that time that Daniel stepped in and became, how can we turn this into something that where we can make a difference so this doesn't happen to another family again. So yeah, he's still involved, of course, in facilitating a lot of our relationships within the leagues, as well as, being a business brain within our organization.
Pauly, what are you doing on the ground, so to speak? What is Break Like Clinic? And I hear you have a community garden. Tell us some of the things that you're doing to further this project.
Yeah, of course. We believe highly in a couple of different things. One is to broaden the type of outreach that, we give out to the people. Like specifically, you guys are in media and you guys, push out the word and make sure we can broaden the conversation and enlighten people's minds. We also want to make sure, like I said, we're changing people's everyday lives. So, for example, a brake light clinic for us looks like, us hiring multiple mechanics and small business owners that can come out and, fix the brake lights and the front lights and the tail lights of our civilians that are getting pulled over for these very reasons, right? And every day, you have people that, they're just an accident or just a little mishap away from, falling, flat on their butt. And, it's unfortunate that we're like that in America, but maybe just if that little change of, fixing that brake light can stop them from getting a ticket, and even worse, from getting, gunned down in broad daylight by a police officer, yep, all because of judgment or whatever the case may be, because of a brake light, because of a tail light, that they couldn't afford to fix themselves at the time. So we feel like little nuances like that are super important, giving back to the community. And in all, while we're doing that, why don't we talk to them about, their tenant rights, right? Like the rights that they have in tenants as renters, as they're trying to build equity to, own whatever they need to own. Why don't we enlighten them on their on getting the vote out in their municipal communities? Why don't we have their aldermen at that event speaking to them and, them actually asking questions to their aldermen and getting to understand each other better as people?
So you've become, in a short time, you've become a community organizer. That's now what you do for your life, right? I mean, do you get support?
Welcome.
How much support have you received from professional athletes or maybe other big names? You got any musicians in the wings, or are elected officials coming forth?
Yeah, we're slowly building up our Rolodex of contacts of athletes.
Oh my gosh, you know the word. Oh my God.
I'm still a
Rolodex is.
Hey, I'm still a 90s baby. I like to call myself part of the Jordan era, not the millennials. But yeah, we're building up that contact list. We do have support, and we're very grassroots. We're looking to not be funded, by a large amount by just one individual or entity. We're looking for this to be a community driven, as well as a grassroots driven initiative. And yes, one of my main goals is for us to come together as people and understand each other better. Understand where we all come from, understand how we all feel, and understand how we can move together as a unit. So yeah, through that, I've been building relationships within the NBA, building relationships within the WNBA, building relationships within politics, building relationships all within the community, and trying to be that bank of connection in between all of them, because there's a disconnect I see of just reaching out to a player and saying, hey, donate $50,000. Don't come show up and don't come understand these people and don't have them understand who you are and how you feel. And I think that people really, really put forth an effort once they're understood and once they can understand what they're pushing for. So yeah, we're really looking to call out for support from our community activists, our community organizations, our NBA, NFL, MLS, any type of athletes that want to speak out, and platform musicians as well. These people are very artistic and very passionate about what they do. And it's important for us to hear their voices and to act on it.
Well, Pauly, before we let you go, and thank you so much, two things. One, share the how people find out about Edify.
Yeah, of course.
Let them know how we spell it, because there's an extra E there. And also, just let us know, how is Jacob doing?
Jacob is coming along. Jacob is day to day. As you can imagine, something like this is a process, right? A lifetime process. But I get my strength from Jacob. I actually still ask him for advice today. And, you know, to share with you, I asked him yesterday, you know, how do you go about things when you feel overwhelmed? And he said, continue to work hard. He said, you know, pray to the Lord and leave it in his hands. And as well, step back and compartmentalize. He said to, you know, breathe, do your breathing exercises, believe in yourself. And, you know, to get those words from somebody whose whole life has been changed overnight in so many different ways, inserts a different type of strength in you that I think anybody with the heart, with the mind, with the soul can connect to. So yeah, I use that strength every day as I work hard and, you know, push for all of us. So, but Edify itself is EDIFYE. We like to inform, to instruct, and to educate ourselves and educate each other. We think that's more important about each other, most and foremost. Our handles at Twitter is Edify, EDIFYE 2020 on Twitter. Same as on Instagram. Same as on Facebook, facebook.com/Edify 2020. We're also on TikTok at Just Edify. And our website is edify.org, where you can go on there, learn more about us, what our mission is, meet some of the members of the team, as well as feel free to sign up as a volunteer, donate as well. We appreciate all the support we can get. We love to hear people's input and ideas as well.
Thank you so much, Pauly. Jackson, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to keep track with each other, okay?
We'll meet you in person. We got things to talk about, brother.
Things to talk about and things to get done, Michael and Katie. I appreciate you guys having me. It was a pleasure to be on Heartland. And you guys keep on keeping on.
Right
back
on.
at you. Back at you.
Dedication. Look. I spent my whole life thinking out the box. Boxing homies 3-on-1, got DP, but I ain't dropped. Chirp on me, here I come. Spin around the block, they blurped on me. Said I ran a stop sign, but that's a lie. I spent my whole life staring at the stage, playing Sega, daddy smoking Sherm, mama playing spades, catching vapors. Grandma said I get some Jordans for my grades, that's my baby. When she died, my heart broke 100 ways. I spent my whole life trying to make it, trying to chase it. The cycle of a black man divided, trying to break it. You take a lost shit, don't cry about it, just embrace it. Mine a setback for major comeback, that's my favorite. My nigga L said you do a song with Nip, K-Dot here better grip. I said he a man first, you hear the words out his lips about flourishing from the streets to black businesses. Level 4 y'all living, giving to false imprisonment. Listen close, my nigga, it's bigger than deuces and foes, my nigga. Since elementary, we close, my nigga, you're straight like that. I give you the game, go back to the turf and give it right back. For generations, we've been dealt bad hands with bad plans. Prove your dedication by hopping out Grand Ams. I'm at the premiere, politicking with Top Nip and Snoop. Damn, Pac watching the way we grew from dedication.
Wow, that was great to meet that guy.
Well, I look forward to meeting him in person.
Yeah.
Got a lot of energy. Okay, well, we're going to turn to the back pages of this newspaper and do our sports report. First of all, I want to call everyone's attention to our show last week, which you could find if you go to youtube.com/Heartland Media and then go to video, and it's number 54. We interviewed Dave Zyron, the really noted, well-schooled, a lot of information sports guy. And
his interview was great. And his talk on the Olympics was top notch. So I'm glad you're leading people there.
Okay, so current news is the big news of the week is Naomi Osaka, who is ranked number 2 in the world, has withdrawn from the French Open. In so doing, she, after she had been fined $15,000 and the threat of being suspended, she decided to take a leave of absence, and she talked about mental health. And she's drawn a lot of attention from commentators, people on both sides of it, but mainly very supportive of what they have to go through. Athletes have to go through doing interviews after a game, whether they win or lose. On another front, our longtime friend Phil Shinnick, the Olympian, carried the flag in the Tokyo Olympics in '62. He's the founder of Athletes United for Peace. After 50 years, his then would-be record in the long jump was finally recognized. So a real big shout out to Phil. It's been, eating at him for years that there was a question about the wind.
Why wasn't it?
There was some question about whether there was a correct reading on the wind that took place in the event in California. But you can look him up. Phil Shinnick, a great acupuncturist and still a radical athlete of renown. And finally, I'd like to tell people that if you're looking for something new and different to do that you probably haven't done, there's a velodrome in Northbrook. And it's, that's track racing by bicycles. You can't coast. It's like a solid gear. The velodrome is reopened. It's running on Thursday nights and on actually later today it's going on. But basically, it's Thursday nights, and then there'll be more events. The Northbrook site is at 1479 Maple Avenue in Northbrook. And it's a good time.
Let me guess about the 2 listeners who might even be interested in that. Does it cost a lot of money, Michael?
No. I think it's free, but I'm not sure if it costs you any money or not.
Doubt that.
I'm sorry, I should have that.
Yeah, well. It's interesting that you know about it. Just in terms of other events, we did already share with you that the mayor announced we're reopening. Thursday, June 10th, there's a Zoom call to join the High Ridge Coalition to hear what's happening in the coalition's plan to develop a community center to replace High Ridge Y. You may have remembered us reporting on that some time back when they announced they were closing the High Ridge YMCA, which is the only working pool in the neighborhood. So join the Zoom call, meet the people involved, find out about the negotiations with the Metropolitan YMCA of Chicago, and brainstorm as they move forward on this project. Go ahead, Michael.
I'm going to say on a sad note, our longtime friend Jesus Chuy Negrete passed away, and listeners to this station know that he had a monthly show. He was a historian, an educator, a musician, a composer, a playwright. He was always there for the people. And I got to say, the last time I think I saw him was at a Chuy Garcia for mayor rally at the Heartland. And today, when we finish, we're going to go out with a tune by Jesus Chuy Negrete. Rest in peace, brother. We're going to miss you.
Indeed. May his memory be a blessing. Glenwood Sunday Market returns tomorrow, June 6th at the Pratt Lot location, same as last year. So come on and get your veggies. Keep our one and only market alive and thriving in Rogers Park. And like we said before, Artists of the Wall is gearing up for a physically distanced but in-person event on Father's Day weekend. They'd love you to volunteer. Check out the Loyola Park Advisory Council.
Pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down there on the floor. No one's ever gonna keep me down again. Whoa, yes, I'm wise, but it's wisdom for the pain. Yes, I paid the price, but look how much I gained. If I have to, I can do anything. I am strong. I am invincible. I am woman.
And welcoming back from some big hours that you just put in for us all in the patch, our state representative, Kelly Cassidy.
Hey, y'all, good to see you.
I'm sure you haven't caught up on sleep yet, but
oh, definitely not. I'm borderline catatonic at this point, between just being tired and having spent 2 weeks doing what I'm referring to as the pollinating and coming back up here to the same snowdrifts of Cottonwood. I don't sound great, but I feel all right.
Well, it's good to see you, Kelly. I'm glad you made it back safe, and I know you're itching to get out of town again. So let's just start off with, how was the first session in memory without Mike Madigan as speaker? And how did the new leader Welsh do?
You know, there was a lot of change in the building. You know, this was really President Harmon's first real session too. So there was a lot of folks who've never done things before, lots of freshmen who had never gone through session even, you know, because we had last year with nothing. So there was a lot of change, but I think we came through it pretty well, and, you know, some natural growing pains, I think, but pretty good outcomes at the end of the day.
We've heard how the pandemic relief funds helped pass the $42 billion budget without a need to raise taxes, at least that's right now. What do you feel best about getting across the finish line this session? Let's start.
Budget wise or bill wise?
Either, both.
You know, it was the budget generally. I'm thrilled because we went into it expecting cuts. But one really big thing happened right at the end. A bunch of us worked together to push back on a budget that was going to short the funding for caregivers for people with disabilities. And, you know, literally at the 11th hour, one of my colleagues, who is one of the most soft-spoken human beings on the planet, had just raged in caucus that we would be bragging about closing all of these holes and still leave these caregivers short. And so there was a last-minute infusion of cash that makes sure that the folks that are personal caregivers, either for folks at home or in SILAs or in SMRFs or other facilities, are going to get those raises that we've been promising for years. So that was a huge win and something I'm really proud to have been a part of.
Who was that rep who made that change?
Michelle Mussman, the mom on a mission. She, like I said, she's pretty soft-spoken. She never raises her voice. I think that we experienced what her now grown kids probably experienced when she would, on rare occasion, raise her voice as that mom, because it took folks aback enough that we found the time and the space and the money to fill that hole.
Kelly, let's go to a big one here. Tell us a little bit about map making, the map drawing. What's going on? The Republicans are decrying the news, which I don't know what the news is yet. You know, they want Pritzker not to sign it. Tell us what's happening with our redrawn maps and what that affects.
So for us, there's very, very little change. Our district is about the smallest in the state. We gained 2,000 residents, so we needed to lose some territory. The folks in Evanston wanted their couple of precincts back. So that was kind of an easy fix. And then there's sort of noodling around the edges to make sure that we are compliant with Voting Rights Act needs and things like that. So our map doesn't change much. But, you know, as someone who has long been an advocate for changing the process by which we do our maps and has been an advocate for fair maps, I was also really struck by how clear it was from the Republican debate on the maps that they would be doing the exact same thing. I mean, their members were getting up and saying, if we had fair maps, we wouldn't have the Reproductive Health Act. If we had fair maps, there wouldn't be menstrual products in restrooms in schools. You know, all of the things that we see as big wins of the last 10 years, they're seeing as what they would seek to undo if they had control of the map. And so, you know, my point is, if we had fair maps, we wouldn't be talking about what political things would be different under a map.
Well,
they're taking they would be doing exactly what was done.
Well, this is the problem for all of us when we hear people decrying the other party for drawing maps that favor them. It's like, you do the same.
Yep.
Everyone does the same until the maps are drawn by non-elected officials.
Exactly.
We're going to have this. Let's see, why did the Republican lawmaker, and I don't know her name, use air quotes around ethics when referring to that legislation that passed this week?
I think I missed that, but they felt
Yes.
they felt like it didn't go far enough, and there are a lot of pieces of it that I agree with. I've said for a while that when we do ethics legislation, we tend to do the least we can do. I think we did a little more than that this time, but we could have done more, and I hope that we will continue to do more. But again, it's one of those things, when proposals are directly aimed at individuals in the chamber, it's a little bit hard. When people talk about folks being elected to multiple offices, we have 3 mayors who are state representatives. That
Really?
seems weird. Things like that. So it's really hard to get to a super clean ethics bill. What's that?
Sorry. We used to call that double dipping.
Well, this is technically not. There are things that are double dipping because we have incompatible offices. Look at me with the air quotes. We have things that are considered incompatible offices, but for some reason, being a mayor and being a state representative is not incompatible. So, that kind of stuff is what brings people to question it.
So, what about the energy bill? Or what wound up with that? Are we still bailing out nuclear power plants, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so we didn't pass an energy bill. I expect that we'll be called back to do something. Negotiations broke down at the 11th hour on a demand to add a coal-fired plant to the list of subsidies, and it happens to be one that is among the top 10 polluters in the country.
Right.
And so that it broke down quite literally at the 11th hour, or maybe the 11:30th hour, and so those talks continue. But the reality is that bailing out the nuclear fleet has always been on the table. There's never been a concept of a bill that won't have that in it. There are compelling arguments why we can't make the switch immediately, and people swear that that's the case, and that we want to do a cost-based subsidy so that Exelon can keep these couple of plants open. But Exelon and ComEd were at the table just doubling down every chance they got. I mean, it was like the equivalent of, when your parents come home and catch you having a rager in the basement, you have one the next day anyway. Exelon didn't seem to understand that they're at the core of one of the largest scandals in our history. And they just kept adding zeros to how much money they wanted.
How much support are they getting from Democrats?
I've not seen a roll call. So I can't really speak to it. I know there's a lot of support from labor for keeping these plants open. That's been sort of the biggest source of support. Is labor interests and Democrats who are most closely aligned with labor. There is significant support for some reasonable subsidy, if you will, if anybody could really use that word. Even among progressives and the Green Caucus, because of the importance of getting the climate change language in there, the decarbonization in there, things like that many folks feel is, balances out any subsidy to Exelon. I really struggle with that myself.
Well, at least we have cocktails to go till 2024.
We do. We have cocktails to go. We have shot in a beer. The state code is really, and you guys had a liquor license, so you know how convoluted and complex it can be. But the state code is really, really tough on liquor license holders, including prohibiting giveaways of any kind. And so, we just got happy hour back a couple of years ago. And this was one, it had to be a very explicit carve out to allow a giveaway for a tavern owner who chooses to reward someone for getting their shot.
Yeah.
Is that the final question, or is there one more?
No, there's one more, I think.
Okay, good. I want to ask you about the elected school board, Kelly. Many of us in Chicago, and I'm sure that the majority of people in Chicago want an elected school board. Our mayors have not been for it. Some kind of progress was made on that, but I'm not sure everybody likes it. Can you fill us in on what you all did?
Well, we didn't do anything. The Senate did it. We went home and they stayed in. and continued to push for it. As you guys know, I've voted for the elected school board bill. I've lost track, maybe 4 or 5 times. But even at the beginning, I was more circumspect and don't necessarily think it's the end all be all that folks think it's going to be. I have concerns about what I saw in other communities. LA County saw the charter movement take over their elected school board in their first election, and they quadrupled the number of charter schools in LA County. So things like that are worrisome to me. But I came around and have been supporting the elected school board. The Senate passed a compromise measure that no one is happy with, which might be a sign of a good bill. It's a hybrid, so it would be, and it's a hybrid with a phase out to a fully elected school board. And the hybrid would be, it would end up being a majority appointed, which I don't love either. I would rather maybe the leadership of the board be elected from within their body or something like that to create more of an opportunity for changing control. But I believe the city's concerns continue, and I have not gotten clarity on this, but I think the city's concerns continue to be about the budget line item in the city budget relative to the state, the contribution to the pension and the mechanics of that. And I'm not conversant enough to explain how that works, but that's been their concern, is figuring out how does the city continue to support the pension fund under the model as it's created. And I believe that is the sticking point. But the bill went through, and we're being asked about our availability for the rest of the month to be able to come down and vote for it.
Ouch. I know you're about ready to head out of town to take your break. I'm
wondering, a cowgirl out there out west.
Yeah, it's time for some time in the mountains. Just a couple days to recenter.
Before you go out west to be a cowgirl, how about what's the deal with the cannabis dispensaries? Anything you want to report on that?
Yeah, so we did pass the cleanup, which is going to result in 110 more licenses in 2 lotteries. I believe that both lotteries are specific to this pool of applicants. I don't believe there's a new pool of applicants contemplated with either one of these pools. So, this would give everyone that got into the first application round a fair shot, because that first lottery was pretty much a disaster, with only 21 entities getting every slot in the lottery. And so that the first 1A, if you will, is going to be specific to the folks with the highest scores in this current applicant pool. And then there'll be another pool of those who will be another lottery for more licenses. So the hope is that by August, we will see some licenses actually let. And an additional really big piece of good news is that we put in place a social equity specific process for giving out those 5 unused medical licenses that have been sitting on ice since the Rauner administration. And these will only be available to social equity applicants. So hopefully this will break the logjam, barring any more litigation. This is the most litigious industry I've ever encountered. So I'm not going to promise that there won't be litigation around this bill too. But my hope is that this will actually break the logjam.
Well, Kelly Cassidy, our great state rep, we thank you.
Hardworking girl.
We thank you for giving us such a great and detailed breakdown. I'm sure there's more we can talk about. So once you're back in the hood after your mountain getaway, and please say happy birthday to a special someone in your life for both of us, okay?
I will absolutely wish Candace happy birthday from both of you. And I'm excited to get back in town and come back and go through all of my bills that we passed, because we did some really cool stuff, y'all. Yeah. So it's going to be a good year.
Right on, sister.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, I really like leading her in and out with Helen Reddy. And now, just as we go out, like Michael said, we're going to listen to Chuy Negrete, a great server of the people, like a lot of you out there. So listen to Live from the Heartland or check us out on YouTube at Heartland Media. And also, we will be on CAN TV, Channel 27. We thank our team, Luis Mejia, Gwen Brown, Lynn Orman Weiss, and a shout out to James Porter and Tom Clark. We ask you to do good in the world.
The world needs all the good that we do. All
All
power to the people.